All right. Good morning, everybody. The time is now here to learn about new age of smart irrigation. I know there's several people very excited about it. I, for one, am very excited about it. The presenters that we got today, or presenter, Chris, is a very well versed in this field and very excited to hear what he has to say. So, want to kind of remind everybody, if you have questions, please answer questions and answers down in the lower left corner in the Q box. The chat is for, you know, mentioning what you did last night or anything else that you feel is appropriate. And then we do have an additional resource links there right in the middle. This is a little video that we weren't able to play into this presentation, but it is a very neat little couple-minute video about WeatherTrack, HydroPoint, and the actual inner workings of said products and stuff. So I'll let Chris explain that a little bit more, but without further ado, I do give you Chris Manchuck.
Excellent. Thanks, Jacob. So I thought we'd start with just a quick overview on who is HydroPoint, my company, to give you a little context as to some of the things we'll be talking about today. HydroPoint has been around now for 14 years. We are a leader in water management solutions. Today, we are focused on irrigation and outdoor water management and overall site management for the landscape. This year, our company will also be introducing what we're calling building water management, which will be a set of solutions for indoor water management and monitoring as well. This will be our 360 water management solution. But as our name suggests, HydroPoint Data Systems, we're not only focused on control of systems, we're also especially focused on data and data analytics. And this is what we set out to do 14 years ago. We were just a little bit ahead of our time with regards to the world of big data and data analytics. And then the Internet of Things, which is what we'll talk about today, which has made this all really come to be a solution that's now very practical for us to implement across the country. Our products are a series of really what could be considered now Internet of Things devices. From control systems to sensors networked together, they can provide data and control, again, from a single site to multiple hundreds to thousands of sites across the country, gathering data, feeding a wide array and network, bringing down to a single console, like an internet portal. We also acquired a company that some of you may be familiar with, Baseline Systems, this year. That just adds to that array of Internet of Things devices that will then be able to be rolled up and gather more data for our customers. Who are those customers? So our customers that are leveraging Internet of Things and big data, across their portfolios range from a single site, large campus like a Google, to huge enterprise customers with hundreds of sites regionally and nationally, like a Walmart, California Department of Transportation, Equity Residential. Again, they're leveraging Internet of Things devices, big data for all facets of their business. Irrigation is now one more area that they are starting to leverage such technology to get operational efficiencies and improve their overall corporate goals. So before we jump into what the Internet of Things can do, let's just talk a little bit about the definition. What is the Internet of Things? How is that defined? So the IoT allows objects, right, to be sensed, monitored, controlled via existing networks, be that a cellular AT&T, Verizon network that can easily bring all these devices in disparate areas into a single centralized area. Allows us to really integrate the real world right to our fingertips. If you look at a lot of things that you hear IoT today, it's really about consumer products like the Nest thermostat or GE refrigerators that can automatically order milk for you. right, when you run out. Um, there's now really a wide array of commercial and industrial applications like irrigation that are also coming to the forefront, where we're seeing huge gains and leveraging operational efficiencies from this IoT and big data. Um, you know, here's just some statistics on the devices and the growing market of IoT. If we look at IoT as it relates to irrigation, there's now 16 different products just around irrigation control that are internet enabled that could be considered, IoT devices. These range from the simplest of home devices, um, for 3 or 4 zones of your landscape to, large golf course and commercial applications, controlling entire cities, campuses, and again, networks across the entire country. If you couple those devices with other sensors, water meters, flow sensors, soil moisture sensors, weather sensors, rain sensors, right, you literally have hundreds of thousands into the millions of IoT devices that are truly, tied into this large irrigation ecosystem of big data. And now it's all about how do we harness the power of all that data we're getting, the efficiencies and operational ease of the IoT to, make our lives better and make the world of water management better. So that's a little bit of the background on IoT and some of the scale and size and things that it reaches right in the irrigation market. Let's talk now a little bit about big data and what the heck it means, and how we can start to leverage some of that data being derived from those IoT devices to drive some efficiencies. So, if you think about big data with irrigation, let's just look at one example of say a 48 station irrigation controller, running 2 cycles, 3 days a week. Right there, you have about 15,000 irrigation events per year. That's a lot of data. Maybe you care, maybe you don't care, but there's definitely some good knowledge within that data. If you expand that, over a large campus, a city, a school, there's about 1 million or more, irrigation events happening annually. And so, from that big data and that information in those irrigation events and cycles, there's knowledge to be gained. Usage anomalies, trends, changes, spikes in usage, all these things, are happening on a daily basis, yet we don't really see or don't have a step above all that data to know how to use it and what to see in it. So really what we're talking about with big data is how do we take all those things happening with all of our irrigation devices on a daily basis and make some information, some knowledge that becomes actionable to make our organization smarter, make our jobs easier. So, why are we talking water for big data and IoT? Well, I think as we all know, and why we're probably, on the call today, the world of water is changing. We're in an era, as it says here, it's no longer socially, economically, or environmentally sustainable to waste water. You know, Today's water management, is more than just it's buzz phrase. It's a part of standard operating procedures for corporations as well as down to single family, residential homes. Um, you know, Water management is here to stay. And that doesn't have to be somewhere where you have just drought. That can be somewhere where you have plenty of water, but wasting water, damages caused by mismanaged water are all things that are adding to the discussion around costs and how to avoid those growing costs around water management. So let's just take a look though at some of the real direct drivers and the categories around water that are driving it really to the forefront and making it one of those top 3 things on your list of things you need to pay attention to. And we'll start with one out west and down south and other areas, the Great Lakes even, and up in the Northeast during times. Drought. Drought is a condition that's here to stay in the country, and it may shift from year to year, place to place. But I think it's part of the discussion and will be around water management, for as long as we continue to have irrigation here in the United States. Last year, 21 states and nearly 50% of the U.S. population were impacted by drought for more than a 60-day period. So as you can imagine, with those types of statistics, drought's going to continue to be a political, environmental, and then a business driver, for years to come. With that comes compliance. From water cops to water shaming by your neighbors, you know, pictures being posted on Facebook and Instagram, you name it. People are, making water, a front and center social issue. So that then comes down to a corporate, right, and a business issue around compliance. How can businesses, maintain and remain in compliance with the changing water management restrictions and water use restrictions that are happening right from county to county, city to city, state to state. Keeping up with all that data and information is a real requirement for business continuity. And so therefore, obviously, that compliance becoming a forefront issue around water. So, let's couple the drought, we couple compliance, and then we have rising water rates. So it's not only an issue of, getting water shamed or, drought causing, tightening of water uses, but, the water rates are going up. So now it's really hitting people in their pocketbooks and hitting them hard from the single families up to the corporations. Water rates now in the last 5 years have grown 30% across the top US 100 cities. In some areas, we've seen doubling and tripling of water rates. So it's an increasing issue from the Midwest to the South to the West as we see aging infrastructure across all those water delivery systems that's being passed on to the end users in increased rates, as well as drought, right, and causing limitations on water supply. There's obviously going to be increased rates, be it tiered water rates or other, that are going to start to really impact the bottom line for corporations. And using water indiscriminately, and especially outdoors where it hasn't been really monitored and tracked as well as some other areas, is becoming a growing pain point. So let's couple that with shrinking labor, right? Now you've got more people trying to do, fewer people trying to do more, around compliance, around drought management, around mitigating, rising water rates. You've got, landscape contractors, you've got facilities people at universities, you've got shrinking staffs, but what's not shrinking are their requirements, their reliabilities, and their job scope. So how can we, do more, achieve more, hit our goals with fewer resources? And then last but not least is the growing, demand and requirement around corporate reporting. So, from this slide here showing a, corporate sustainability report from Starwood, down to your HOAs, up to, lead reporting, GRESB reporting scorecards. There's a lineage and list of reporting requirements that impact all of our jobs, from the field guide to the CFO, and a lot of that is going to now tie into water, not just water in general, but specifics around water, irrigation savings, indoor savings versus outdoor savings, usage, cost, waste. And so again, big data, IoT becoming a requirement to help gather that data, make it something that's available quickly and easily so that everyone can do their jobs around reporting with all the water goals that are now part of our lives. So, again, with those 5 different drivers that we just touched upon there, obviously there's a growing network of constituents that are impacted, care, and have some operational tie into water use on a day-to-day basis, or that water reporting on a weekly, monthly, annual basis. But no longer is irrigation just the thing that happens outside to keep the plants alive. It is now a utility management task and role and priority within corporations that everyone needs to care about, from the design side with the green professional up to the CFO who needs to report on that water management and those water goals to Wall Street. How are we doing with those water goals? How are we doing with our return on investment for the water capital projects that we made? These are all things that are absolutely necessary now within corporations. And again, irrigation being sometimes 60, 70, 80% of that corporate water use has a very, very large seat at the table when it comes to water management and that discussion. So how are we going to get all these people the data they need, give them the control systems they need to do their jobs, do their reporting, give them easy standardized controls that are going to allow them to succeed in all their different jobs. So it's really expanded well outside of just the maintenance staff and the green professionals, and really hit a whole new corporate layer, which is, I think, driving this really you know huge compounded expansion of IoT and big data around the water space. So here's where the video would have gone in, and for those who have time after this presentation, I suggest you just go take a look. It's a quick 2-minute video that specifically talks about our product WeatherTrack within the context of the Internet of Things. We've done this in conjunction with AT&T, who is a network provider, connecting all of our devices. And then it gives the perspective of the Phoenician Resort out in Arizona and how they've used the Internet of Things to make their staff better, make them smarter, make them more efficient, as well as to drive those efficiencies and hit their operations and savings goals with devices that are able to quickly and easily be monitored, maintained, and give them the data they need to report to Wall Street. So I thought the next good place to go here would be to really just drive into some of the real world benefits of what this IoT and big data can do for us in our day-to-day lives with respect to irrigation. Obviously, there's dozens and dozens of other ways that irrigation water management can be impacted, but I thought we'd just touch upon 10, and these are 10 that are kind of near and dear to our heart here at HydroPoint, because they're ones that we live and breathe every day with our customers. And so I thought that would be the best contextual place to start, and then we'll see if there are some more questions from these 10 initial examples. So first and foremost, with IoT devices and irrigation bringing a vast world and a whole country's worth of information down to your fingertips, that's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. It can be crippling. So more meaningful reporting is a great thing, but you need to obviously make sure, or more data is a great thing, but you need to make sure you have meaningful reporting out of that data. So I think that's one of the first areas that we're really seeing big changes is irrigation controllers and central systems have had reporting and data for a while, but it's really been just a very strict operational type of report. Now we're looking at how do we find real good information out of those reports and hit those different roles we talked about earlier with simplified reports that really speak to each person's different role within the corporation, from a property manager to a CFO, and of course those day-to-day operations reports for facility managers and for your landscape contractors. So these reports, your ability to customize reports are crucial to making sure that the IoT and big data fit into your workflow for your company. I think the next thing that's very important when it comes down to the data is give me something that's actionable, right? I think data can be, like I said, very crippling if you don't do something with it. And so when we talk about big data, we really are talking about what do you do with that data, and that's really actionable analytics. So how do you take something like water use across every zone of your landscape, across an entire portfolio of buildings, and make that meaningful, actionable information? So just this is a snapshot of one of the dashboards that we can provide, showing you what percentage of water was used by your different sprinkler head types, what percentage of water is used by your different plant types, across a single site, across the entire campus, across your entire portfolio, across the country. And the actions you can provide off of this will be, right, where do I want to make sure I upgrade my systems? I want to make sure that I look at my spray heads and can I convert those to high efficiency heads, because that's 63% of my water that I could be impacting there. I want to look at, am I using a lot of water on turf? Well, in this case I am. Can I get a benefit out of, right, doing some turf replacement in some of those areas? So again, taking that discrete day by day flow usage and rolling that up into meaningful data becomes some real actionable things that then corporations, contractors can work in tandem with this information to create better plans around, what's the next phase of water management for my property. Real-time alerting is another one that is just a no-brainer, right? Getting that information about events happening on a site in real time, now brought to a device in your palm, um, is critical. Those things that you see from broken wires underground to leaks underground, leaks above ground, all things that can compound over time, can now be mitigated and addressed immediately. Irrigation, as we all know, happens at night, right? We're not always around to see when these things are happening or know when they're broken. So we don't often know until you see a giant puddle, you see a slope fail, um, you see plants dead. That's been the typical alert and alarm, right, in the irrigation industry. Now, with the ability to have these devices all networked together, getting real-time information and data out to your fingertips in actionable data, we can tell you exactly when something breaks, what's broken, how long it's been broken. We can tell you when it was fixed. We can then at the end of the year tell you how many breaks you had, how much that cost you in time. Did your landscape contractor, right, fix those according to, right, the service level agreement they had with the site? Was it done? Was it fixed in 1 week, 1 month? All that becomes great data to work on an improved plan for upcoming years, for budgets for upcoming years. And having that data available in a simple report now, right, versus having to cull through, right, files and files of papers and work orders and all the things that happen during the year, it just never happens in a timely fashion. So bring all the data of all the events that happen during the course of the year now to your fingertips becomes a real great planning tool. Next, there's operational efficiency, and there's obviously dozens and dozens of examples of how the Internet of Things, data coming to your fingertips in meaningful fashion can drive efficiency. And so we just thought we'd take one example here, and where we're seeing a lot of benefit and a lot of different customers driving towards is how to use visual maps and interface and tools to make their teams smarter. You've got field staff turning over weekly, monthly, annually, and so all that corporate knowledge and that site knowledge they have goes with them. And so you're starting from scratch every 6 months or every year when a new person joins the team. So being able to network these devices, map these devices, have a living, breathing, right, active map that can tell me what my asset inventory and where my assets are, becomes huge corporate knowledge for individuals and entire organizations to become much more effective and efficient. And it's just a simple way to have great communication between customer, contractor, site manager, when you can all be speaking the same language, looking at a map to communicate, going on site walks together, easily find devices that you're looking for. Obviously, there's just a host of dollar savings that can be generated out of these types of things. I think you're talking weeks, months of man hours just going to try and find a valve box or trying to find a controller when you're doing some maintenance on it. And now these things are pinpointed. A map is available right in the palm of your hand to show you where things are. The other great part about things like this is, again, it's going to give you a simple one-stop repository to collect and maintain information about all those devices during the course of the year, so that when you do have time in December to sit down and digest what happened on a certain site over the course of the year. It's all in here. It's a great visual way to start, and then you can dive into details about all these devices. Every alert that happened on that controller, you can visualize, and you can see. You can see how many times someone went out to the site to visit that controller, and what they did when they were there. So all that big data then can turn into knowledge for a corporation and for a landscape company to make themselves smarter and better for the upcoming season. So measurable labor savings. Just imagine, not having to get in a truck and roll out to a site because someone said something's not working, right? That's traditionally been the only way to do it. Now there's so much that can be done just by sitting at your desk and looking at diagnostics and solving things without going out to the field to understand, and just have to see, oh, it's unplugged, oh, the power is off. We had one customer that did a study over the course of a year, and across 20 schools, they recognized a hard dollar savings of $32,000 in 1 year in avoided overtime charges, just having the ability to remotely shut systems on and off. So it's 20 schools that they typically would have to drive a truck out to shut a system off for a rain event, shut it off for a graduation event. By having the ability to do that from a computer console, very simple, accessible to someone at home on the weekend via their cell phone when they're at lunch, they're able to save a very large sum of money and really pay for the investment right there in just that labor savings alone, independent of any of the water savings and water benefits they're able to gain. So then we come down to really, some huge time and changes to the way that we can start to manage irrigation systems and manage large campus and large sites that we never really had before. So, a great example of how these different web-based tools networking and connecting with those Internet of Things devices, i.e. irrigation controllers or flow sensors out in the field, can drive huge efficiencies. So in working with a large city in Southern California last year, they have over 625 irrigation controllers, all with flow sensors. So over 1,000 different devices out there that are networked together, providing control of those devices as well as data from those devices. Well, the drought hits and they're immediately told they need to reduce their water usage by 20%. So one way obviously to do that, and the only way they have to do that, is to really focus on landscape and landscape irrigation. That is where they have their water use. And so one option is run out to every one of those controllers, turn it off, right? Plants die, landscapes die. The other is to go out to every one of those controllers and tweak it and play around with what's the right schedule adjustment. The other way is to go online, and with the web-based tools, they have the ability to take 2,500 different turf zones across their entire city, turn that into one virtual controller, and with one click of a mouse, they're able to turn down all of their irrigation on their turf zones by 25%, leave all of their high value tree assets and other landscape assets that maybe won't be as resilient as turf, leave those on full irrigation so they're getting what they need, and they're able to hit their water goal. So literally in a matter of 10 minutes with web-based tools talking to these Internet of Things devices, they're able to address their drought goals and move on to whatever other tasks and operational things they need to do that day, but not have to spend the 400, 500 man hours driving around to controllers and going into each controller to figure out, how do I, address these water savings goals here. So that's just one example of many on how, these large scale controls, large scale data, and reactions to obviously changing requirements are able to make, our lives better and easier using the IoT, big data type of network. Compliance monitoring is another huge one in the top 10. The compliance word it's a that's a scary word to some, but it's here to stay. And that compliance really, as we see it within the realm of water management, it ranges from, again, your simple, right, compliance with day of the week watering restrictions that a water agency may give you, to compliance with your own best practices and what time of day you do or don't want to water the entryway because you might have pedestrians walking there. Is a host of different issues around compliance that all need to be contained, monitored, and controlled. And so with the ability to, again, have all that data about when devices are running, when they're not running, who's operating them, who's not operating them, and having that all in a report at your fingertips, you're very, very quickly and easily able to see which of your sites, which of your areas are in compliance, out of compliance. And again, with the analytics, you have actionable data on how to quickly address those. For a site, that same site that had 600 controllers that we just talked about, with a single click, they're able to see, which of those 600 controllers were not operating according to the day-a-week restrictions, right, that were being enforced by the local water agency. Within 24 hours, they're able to, create a new schedule, make adjustments, and get all of those controllers into compliance, all while sitting at your desktop and not having to visit the field at all, not having to receive any fines first before that happened. So, living in that world of compliance, which we are now with the water, restrictions and water agencies and the like, having that, IoT type of tool and being able to in real time talk to devices, is becoming a critical part of our jobs in managing water, and will only become a growing one as I see it, especially with corporate compliance becoming more and more of an issue as well. So having an updatable platform is a huge benefit of the Internet of Things type of approach. So no longer do you have to wait 5 years before your new central control system updates come out, or you have to buy a new piece of hardware every 7 or 8 years to get new features. With cloud-based controls and IoT type of devices, you know, many manufacturers, and service providers, are coming out with new releases, you know, every 6 months, every year, so that the newest, latest features of reports, new compliance tracking, devices, you name it, these can be added easily, quickly to the network, and give you those features and functions without major overhaul of your entire system. The way that these devices are architected, and the way the systems are architected, right, give access to quickly and easily just show a new interface without having to go out to the field and update a device. You can also add a new level of analytics that gives you a new way to look at information without having to go out and update a device in the field. So again, having these different layers of devices in the field and then analytics and interface, in the cloud really allows for, companies like ourselves to hear recommendations from our customers, get great input, and be able to quickly and easily turn that around into really useful features and functions, and then get those out to the market in a very, very fast fashion compared to what's been done in the past. And I think that's really going to continue to be a requirement and a driver to stay on top of water management. Again, as our resources are shrinking around folks we have to manage, we're going to have to get smarter about that analytics layer, and provide more and more, taking that data from the field, turning it into actionable data in a quick little interface that tells you here's what's wrong, here's what you need to do, here's what your trends are showing you, so that that one person can now make decisions with all the data that we're rolling up for them. Number 9 on our list, here we go. So water budget management. This is really the end goal in many cases when you're talking water management. It's around setting a goal with all the constituents, and then tracking how you're doing against that goal. So water budgets are again are a thing that I think are here to stay, and they're only growing in scale and scope of where we're seeing them. And so having at your fingertips the information around what your goal is, what your budget is for a site, for an entire portfolio, and then tracking how you're doing in real time, because those IoT devices, the flow sensors, are able to provide information to the controller. Controller is able to network that information up in real time and compare how you're doing against your budget, is absolutely critical so that you can actually make decisions around changes to behavior, changes to operations before you get out of budget and before you blow your goal. So this real-time information really helps to people communicate, make better decisions together, and be able to, again, having it all in one location, drill into, if I am off my goal, why? I can find out that last month, right, I was 20% over goal. I can click on that and find out, oh, that's because I had 4 flow breaks last month, and that was my issue, right? I had mainline leaks. So it's a very, very, compelling and comprehensive way to quickly and easily look at your goal, hit your goal, know why you're at a goal, and make changes. Last but not least, there's corporate knowledge, right? I talked about this a little earlier when we discussed the map type of functionality and making sure that you can maintain all that information and knowledge that someone has, and it's recorded somewhere. So if they leave, it doesn't leave with them. This is another, area that's very similar, and it's really a document management. So we're all in the world now of Dropbox and Box and file sharing, and so having information at our fingertips and making it available to our the entire corporation of constituents that need it is critical for fast decisions and not wasting time. So many irrigation central control and cloud-based systems are now allowing you to aggregate different types of data. So this is just an example of our WeatherTrack solution and how we've given people document management capability so they can upload maps, reports, images from the field, and they can associate all that data and information with a specific controller, with a specific site, so that again, that information is there for all the different constituents to see, access, and be able to analyze and do what they need to do, but they don't have to keep on looking through emails or asking people to send me a copy of this or going through their hard files and looking for X, Y, and Z. So they're able to scan documents, get them loaded in here, and have again everything right at their fingertips when that time comes that they're going to need it. Additionally, they can keep an ongoing notes field that's time stamped. It's kind of like an ongoing text message conversation about that particular site or that controller, and it can be tied to a specific alert or alarm. It could just be general site conditions. It could be about a site walk. It's very flexible, right, to use this tool as each individual entity sees fit with their workflow. So again, this corporate knowledge really ties it all together. We want to make sure that everything that's being done is retained in one spot, so that all that great work and hard work and time spent in the field by humans is also recorded and then can be combined with all the IoT information coming from the devices and the actual operational elements from the controllers, from the sensors themselves. So you take that human data, combine it with the actual device data, and now you've got everything in one spot, and then the amount of analytics that we can layer on top of that becomes pretty much limitless, to provide hopefully actionable data for corporations for the future. So that was a rapid walk through our top 10, but I hope it gave you guys a little bit of context, how we here at HydroPoint see our customers using IoT and big data to drive operational efficiencies, better water management, better results for themselves and their customers, out of the tools that are available. And we're very, very excited about the future and what it holds. I think we're definitely in a period within irrigation that's one of the fastest pace with regards to innovation and new products being developed. It's a great thing, and it's also a scary thing for many, because there's a lot of new products, and change is sometimes a scary thing. But I think there's a lot of power in a lot of the tools coming out and what they can harness and deliver. And I think it really is driven by this whole IoT and data we can gather, so that we can all become hopefully smarter, create better automation, and really drive efficiencies in our day-to-day work. So with that, I'm going to wrap it up and see if there are any other questions,
A
comments that
couple
we can try and
just
answer.
started rolling in. So a reminder, anybody who has a question, please get it in right now. First one answered pretty well already, but Madison is wondering if it's possible to connect all the existing irrigation devices for a site to HydroPoint, or do you need all new stuff? So I'll let you explain that one.
Yeah, no, that's a very very good question, and I think that's a where things are going in the future. I think right now for us particularly, you need a new controller to go into the field to be able to roll up that data. Um, there are different devices that people are starting to throw out there that allows them to try and gather a little bit of information, maybe just flow information from an existing controller and roll that up to a site. Um, but that is I think the next frontier of how to take existing irrigation devices and try and get that data networked up via the
Cool. And
different
then
IoT add-on devices.
Tyson had a question about your acquisition a little bit. So wondering with that acquisition of Baseline, how is Weathermatic going to change and how is Baseline going to change? I'm assuming that's what you wrote.
I assume you meant weather track, not weathermatic. Although I can address all of that, but um, um, yeah. So a good question. I mean, for us, the acquisition of Baseline was a very strategic one based on upon their technology, and their sales presence. We look forward to including their technology portfolio into ours, and so Baseline will operate as a HydroPoint company, and we will continue to invest in their great network of controllers, devices, and hopefully expand, their footprint as we continue to expand the WeatherTrack footprint as well. So both will continue to coexist in the market as strong brands, and they have their different roles and places, and we
Cool.
are looking
Well,
forward
I
to
think
expanding
that's
both of
it,
those.
guys. Chris, I really appreciate it. That was very good information. I think everybody definitely got at least one thing out of it. Um, so, anyways, we do apologize for the little hiccup this morning,
Hopefully.
but any other questions, definitely feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to contact Weather Track HydroPoint and, you know, keep on going. And we'll see you guys next week. Thanks, guys.
Great. Thanks, Jake. Thanks, everybody.